And the topic of this presentation is going to be subjective evaluation of passive back support wearable robot for simulated rebar work. So Nihar, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So good afternoon, my fellow researchers. My name is Nihar James Gonsalves, and I am a PhD student at Virginia Tech. And my research involves into understanding the risks and socio-technical challenges of humans and wearable robot interaction on construction sites. So today I'll be presenting a small part of my research, which is co-authored by Mohammed, Abiola, Dr. Omubo Linley, and Dr. Akanmu. So we'll start with the introduction, go into the objective, methodology, results, and end with conclusion. So construction workers are subjected to work postures which are repetitive, such as squatting and backbending. Now, these are extremely physically demanding, causing work-related musculoskeletal disorders, which are essentially muscle injuries occurring in different parts of the body throughout the body. Now, from the different injuries in construction, WMHDs account for 33% of all the cases in construction, which is serious. Now, when we look into rebar workers, what we find out is that a rebar worker, the cases amongst rebar workers have actually gone up by 400% in the last 2 years. A risk assessment conducted, a posture risk assessment conducted on rebar workers found out that they spend roughly 40 to 48% of their time working in forward bending positions. And as a result of which, what we see is that from the different body parts affected due to WMSDs, back injuries account for 44% of all the cases in construction. So to address this problem, a back support exoskeleton is looked upon as a potential solution, mainly because we have seen that there is a reduction in the muscle activity due to its use and increase in the productivity. However, for a wearable system such as an exoskeleton to be adopted, it has to attain a certain level of usability and comfort levels for the worker to perform. But there is limited evidence, specifically in the construction industry, regarding the use of exoskeletons. And that is where we come into the picture, wherein the objective of our study is to assess a commercially available back support exoskeleton in terms of usability and perceived discomfort for rebar work. And we are asking two main questions. Firstly, to what extent is it easy to learn and use the exoskeleton, and how much impact does it have on the comfort of the worker? And secondly, to what extent does it impact other body parts while they are working? So the adopted method, the methodology which we adopted is we conducted a lab study with 10 student participants who performed rebar work with and without an exoskeleton. So they performed placing and tying subtasks for 4 cycles each for each of the experimental condition. And the exoskeleton used in this case was Levo, which is as seen in the picture. So at the end of this experiment, we collected the usability data based on a structured questionnaire, which had a bunch of positive and negative questions. So depending upon their level of agreement, they agreement with each statement, they answered these questions on a 5-point Likert scale. And to collect the perceived discomfort, the participants rated 8 different body parts on a 10-point box scale. And now this collected data was analyzed using descriptive statistics such as mean and standard deviation for usability and analysis of variance for perceived discomfort. So going into results, in terms of ease of use, all these questions were positive in nature, straightforward. And so what we see is that the participants were easily able to don and doff the exoskeleton and adjust it to their fit with the rating of 3.7 and 3.8 respectively. However, when asked whether it worked as they desired, or did it meet their need, or did it accomplish what they want to do, we see a moderate rating of between 3.3 to 3.4. And as a result of which we see that it affected their preference of using the exoskeleton, which was only 3.1, which is moderate. However, in terms of their confidence of using without assistance, we see a high rating of 3.9. Going into ease of learning, we had 1 negative and 5 positive questions. So what we can see, a low rating of 1.8 suggests that participant did not need to have any prior knowledge of exoskeletons to be able to learn it and use it during the lab study. And when we look into the other questions about were they able to assemble it, adjust it for their fit, check the fitting, understand how to use it or use without assistance, we see that we have a high to very high rating, showcasing it was easy to learn. Talking about the comfort, we had 2 negative and 1 positive question. In this case, what we see that the low to moderate rating of 2.6 suggests that the exoskeleton did not restrict their movement a lot, at the same time did not affect their work environment while performing the rebar work. However, this did not reflect into their satisfaction with the device, and we see a moderate rating of 3.2, which might have also affected their preference to use the exoskeleton. Going now, looking into the overall usability, what we did was we basically separated the positive and negative questions to understand what was the trend for the positive questions and the negative ones. On the left, what we see is that highest rating was achieved for the positive questions was achieved by ease of learning, followed by ease of use, and then comfort. And for the negative questions, we see is the least rating was achieved by ease of learning, followed by comfort. So a moderate to high rating for positive questions and a low rating for negative questions suggests that the exoskeleton overall did achieve a good level of usability. Now, going into the level of perceived discomfort, what we saw was that the exoskeleton did not drastically affect hand, upper arm, shoulder, or neck, but we did see a reduction in the perceived discomfort at the lower back and lower leg, which is very crucial. But at the same time, we saw an increase in the discomfort at the thigh and the chest body part. And this could have been mainly because of the chest and the thigh pads, which are part of the exoskeleton. So as a conclusion, what we can say is that the back support exoskeleton is easy to learn and use. However, it did impact their comfort to a certain extent. Now, in terms of discomfort, we saw a reduction in the discomfort at the lower back, which is what this exoskeleton is designed for, which is a pretty good sign. But at the same time, we saw an increase in discomfort at the chest and thigh body parts, which is a point of concern. Now, this study had certain limitations, which we suggest to address in the future studies. Firstly, this was a lab study. So the interaction of the exoskeleton with actual work environment is not known. And secondly, these were student participants and not actual construction workers. The way an actual construction might perform the rebar task might differ compared to the students. So we suggest that in future, we conduct similar studies with real construction workers to get their feedback regarding the usability. And what we also saw was that in terms of discomfort, there was a variability in the perceived discomfort, so which cannot be measured. But what we suggest is that in future, what we can do is we can have objective measures such as electromyography sensor to measure the actual muscle activity in different body parts throughout the body to understand how much did it affect the worker's muscles. Thank you so much. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that we have.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nihar, for this wonderful and also very important presentation. I do believe this is very important because you consider the health and the benefits for this, construction workers. And also, I do like your the limitation part you talked about, like the future study, because you already understand this the very important question that the student participant is not the real workers. And also maybe just one quick comment is that I agree with this point. And also I think in terms of the age of this, this experiment people, like I think that's also could be a big factor because now many countries are, this labor in construction are aging rapidly. Yes. So maybe students are there in their early 20s or late teens, but some real construction workers could be in their 40s or even 50s. So that I think that the benefits for that age group also could be understood. What do you think of that?
Yes, I totally, I would agree with you on that, but I think I might be answering a bit of that in the next presentation, which is
Ah,
with actual construction workers and in real working conditions. So we
okay.
also, as I said, this was a part of my research. This was the initial stages of my research, this paper, and we also have progressed ever since.
All right, all right. Very nice answer. And maybe I would like to ask, because I couldn't see any questions from this chat, but is there any question from the auditorium?
I have a question.
Oh, okay, please.
Do you think there's potential for insurance companies to maybe subsidize the purchase of these kinds of devices?
I mean, I would say that more than the insurance companies, the manufacturers might be involved, and like given the construction companies, if there is a mass production and mass purchase of these devices, then that might really help with actually reducing the price of these devices, which are right now very expensive. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, so if do we have another, maybe one more questions available? We still have like maybe time for another one.
Also, if not, I can add on to that point. Like one part of the insurance company being part of it is the implementation of exoskeletons construction. So that's not part of this presentation, but still currently we are also working on that aspect in my research. So we are actually conducting research to understand who are the stakeholders who should be part of the implementation strategy, and how can we ensure that the exoskeletons can be adopted successfully. So in that case, we are also going to be interviewing insurance companies and getting their insights to understand what can be done from their aspect and what needs to be considered to make it a smoother process.
Okay, okay, great. Great for your thank you for your answer. Maybe we now have time to move on